but I guess there's been kind of like such a fascination with cults lately, just on like documentaries on TV, but also like comedies lately, like Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt too. And like, why do you think cults in particular are kind of having this moment right now, if you could say that? And just did you dig any deeper into cults when starting to work on the show?
I mean, I had already watched a whole bunch of culty documentaries. I'm a part of I'm in it. I get it. I get the craze. I don't know why, like what makes it timely? Like, why is it right now? I don't know the answer to that. But it's kind of like an unending trough of like things to choose from and make fun of. So I get why Anna chose to make it culty, because there's a lot of good material out there.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Well, I'm curious because Petey feels like she could be in the vein of Alexis from Schitt's Creek, just based on what people perceive from the storyline, just the story synopsis. What do you think sets her apart from a character that you're so familiar with already?
Well, you're absolutely right, and there's certainly an overlap, and I got to break out my vocal fry again, which I was very excited about. But this script is so bizarre and so wildly inappropriate and hilarious, and like so much of this humor would never have seen the light of day on Schitt's Creek, due to network television. It makes sense. So though there might be similarities between the two characters, this show just takes it way off-roading, and that's what makes it stand out. That's what makes it unique.
I'm going to piggyback on Jamie for a second there. When I watched the first episode of the show, I thought, oh, this is a workplace comedy. The cult is the corporation. And then as you watch a few more episodes and Petey settles in, things open up a bit. And there's not a ton of information out there yet about the show. So what would you say the show's really about? Who is Petey, and what are we, like, what's going on here? Just for people who don't know yet.
Yeah, well, when we meet Petey, she's a real New Yorker, a real city girl who thinks she has it all figured out. But unfortunately, she loses her job, her apartment burns down, she breaks up with her boyfriend, and her dead dad, bestows a cult upon her. And so she has to move from New York to the South and try to figure out how to be the leader of a cult with no previous experience. And it's basically just the trials and tribulations, trying and failing basically over and over again, surrounded by a very colorful, quirky cast of characters.
Yeah, and how much you can relate to her, if you can relate to her, anything.
I think the constant pursuit of figuring herself out, I can identify with. And it's great because when we meet her, she is a deeply flawed character, which I find is the most interesting kind of character to play. And that allows her a lot of room to grow and change and fail and grow and learn.
I guess just kind of off of that too, Annie, like I really love this tug of war that's going on with Petey, that she just kind of wants to be heard and has these good ideas, which can, kind of hopefully fix this toxic situation. But at the same time, like she is kind of still contributing to this dark collective at the same time too. Like, are you worried that she might head down a dark path before she gets better? Is that an exciting kind of trajectory for the character to be on?
100%. I think Anna has written such a complicated character who, yes, is trying to make the lives of the people in the cult better, but is also strangely attracted to being the leader of the cult. And so it's kind of the perfect situation. She's set it up beautifully. And so to be sure, there will be some straying from the path. with Petey as she tries to figure it all out.
Dialogue is super fun and filled with humor, and I really think it's a great comedic place for you. Was it hard though for you to sort of keep it together, not laugh during some specific moments for Petey?
100%. It's actually the hardest time I've had thus far in my career. There's one particular episode, I don't think you guys have seen this one, I think it's later in the season, but a gas escapes into the town and it makes everybody horny. And Anna Drazen wrote me a monologue where I'm just desperately trying not to talk about sex, but it's all that's coming out of my mouth. And I genuinely didn't know if I was going to be able to do it because it was so disgusting and filthy and outrageous and funny that it took me many a take to be able to get through it. So I'm excited for people to see that one.
You're surrounded by a great supporting cast. John Cho plays the love interest. Amy Hill has I don't want to spoil what her role is, and all sorts of amazing guest stars and people in small parts. I know that most voice acting is done solo. Can you talk about how you've been able to collaborate with some of these fantastic actors, if at all?
Yes. Well, I mean, we did record most of it, but it's so fortunate that we were able to do a table read for every episode. So we'd get on Zoom, and I still have not met anybody in person, which is such a weird thing, but at least we had the opportunity to get to know each other a little bit and kind of hear it out loud and see what the dynamics were. And the level of talent and experience that so many of the cast had, I really felt like the new kid showing up to school, like not knowing what to do. But I was in very, very good company, and they were all incredibly sweet and welcoming and hilarious.
Thanks.
Have you ever seen yourself in a situation like that, have to move to one place to another and try to figure out, you know what I mean? Because she's trying to figure out what she can do better for that place and for New Utopia. And have you ever been in a situation like that?
Yeah, I mean, her apartment burnt down, my apartment burnt down. So I've been in that situation, but I feel like as an actor, you're like, I'm constantly living out of a suitcase and moving around and kind of starting a new project. So I can definitely identify with the starting over again or starting something new and scary.
Nice. Annie, this is kind of like your first major role in an animated series, but it looks like you've kind of steadily been doing more between like work in Fairfax and American Dad, and you've got Ruby Gilman coming out too. Has that just been like a fun transition to do that kind of work? Is it a little more freeing than, being on screen?
Oh, 100%. I feel so lucky because I'd wanted to do voice work for such a long time. And now I have a couple of really cool things under my belt. And it's so much different from film and TV acting in the sense that you can be as big and over the top as you want to be. And usually that's encouraged. And also you can show up to work in sweatpants, which is just like, oh, a dream, an absolute dream.
Awesome.
What do you think it is about Praise Petey that's just going to make it a fast fan favorite series?
I think it is, it's so uncensored and so outrageous. It's very, very funny, but it's also it's a very smart show, and it's, touching on a lot of different relevant themes. And so I think if you like if you have a quirkier sensibility, then this show is going to be very, very, very up your alley.
This show is about, and by the way, we're all wearing sweatpants right now. You know that, right?
Oh, good.
We're journalists. We work in sweatpants.
I love that.
Daniel talked about cults having a moment, but I think this show is a kind of character who's having a moment. If you've seen Freeform's other show, Single Drunk Female, this show reminds me a little bit of Single Drunk Female in the sense that it's a young woman in her 20s who fails and has to rebuild her life, but has this sort of, she's a stereotype of a type of young woman who's wholly self-absorbed. Everything that Petey does is she's got her own itch she needs to scratch. And I feel like that's a character that's having a moment. Is that just because I'm old and that's like how people are now? Like is that like a stereotype that TV is getting at? Do you know what I mean about this type of young woman that Petey is and that we see in media now?
Yeah. I think you're totally right. I think that is like an archetype that we're seeing more and more. But what I think is very cool about Petey is Anna's kind of making a commentary on it. Like she picked Petey to be Petey for a reason. And it's something that she can kind of make fun of as the show goes on. Yeah, but gosh, is it fun to play a deeply self-absorbed person. It's a blast.
Fun. So let's talk about the relationship that Pete is gonna have with Eliza, the best friend. She became a best friend. How much you're gonna see that involved throughout the series?
I love that relationship between those two because Eliza is not necessarily the most willing best friend, but Petey just kind of forces herself into not just a friendship, but an immediate best friendship. And Eliza really doesn't seem to have much say in the matter. So it's a funny dynamic to me. And of course, Eliza ends up warming to Petey slowly as the episodes continue, and they end up in a genuine friendship and helping each other out as the season goes on.
One of my favorite things about the show is kind of how each episode explores what it takes to run a society or like how a community can thrive. And you really break that down in a lot of interesting ways. And do you kind of just hope that the people that watch the show kind of adopt this responsible mindset as well? Or like, I don't know, that they can take, as you said, it's a very funny show, but there is like a real force of change at the core of it too, that I think is really cool.
Yeah, of course I hope that. I mean, we can all be so much kinder and gentler to each other. And I'm glad that you saw that in the show. That's a good step forward. And I also think that, the banning of human sacrifice is always
yeah, we got to fight that.
Yeah.
You've mentioned how wonderfully Anna crafted this character for you, but was there anything you added to Petey that wasn't there for her initially?
I mean, it was so well done as like right away. I think the thing that I added is Petey sometimes talking in an accent when she feels uncomfortable, or like putting on a goofy voice. But everything else is from the beautiful brain of Anna Drazen.
One relationship that's slightly underdeveloped, I think, in the first 5 that I've seen, is Petey's relationship with her father, who of course is dead, but he's not really a good guy. He created this thing really not for altruistic reasons. And Petey's kind of aware of it, but I don't feel like she's come to grips with it. Now, this is not Succession. This is not King Lear, but are we going to see more of Petey and her father and like what it means to have gotten this thing from him?
Yes, we are. And of course, we only get to see him in a series of pre-taped videos that he made to kind of lead her on her cult leader journey. But we do see more of their relationship. And also, I think Petey struggles. I think there's a lot more of her father in her than she thinks. And I think that probably is what adds to the push and pull of, do I want to abolish this cult or do I want to lead it into the future?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, sure. I've also noticed, Annie, like you've been able to dip your toe more in a little more like diverse genre material. Like your Black Mirror episode was so good. And just like this show exists in a very heightened reality that she can like literally have a plank of wood for her ex-husband. So funny. But just, are you having fun kind of doing a little more stuff outside of just a direct comedy and getting to mess and drama and just, you know, genre stuff more?
Big time. I mean, I want to do it all. I feel like actors are so lucky because they get to try on a whole bunch of different lives and experiences in their one lifetime. And so the more diverse the roles, the more genres I can check off, the better.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
What's next for you? Have you been busy working on some other wonderful projects as well?
I have a couple of things. I'm trying to figure out what my fall is going to look like. So I have a couple of cool options there, but this summer, I think I just get to have a summer holiday, which is nice. I get to put my suitcase away. I'm so tired of looking at it. So I'm going to hopefully spend some time with my folks at their cottage and just being around my friends and family before I have to go away again.
Well, then quickly, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the difference between doing voice acting and doing acting before the camera. You talked about being able to be more over the top. And it struck me like, is that where your sweet spot is? Big characters? Do you ever want to do a small little period piece or?
Oh, very much. I want to do a period piece where I'm like gazing out to sea from my lost husband. I'd also love to play like a fully evil character one of these days. I want to play a character that's very still, because I've realized I'm a natural flailer, and I've played a lot of very flaily characters. So if you know anyone, let me know. Put me in touch.
Yeah, Chelsea's a little bit evil, right? From Ruby.
Totally. And that's where I like opened the floodgate. I was like, oh, I like this. I like being pure evil. It felt too good.
Yeah.